These are bleak days for so many of us, with seemingly unending viral plague isolating us, impoverishing us, infecting us, and sometimes killing us. Hearing from God during this time is vital, and yet may seem so difficult. Some of us may experience a divine silence as we now seem isolated even from Him. God, what do you have to say to me, to us? I ask impatiently. You got nothing? I can't hear you. Well, I'm sharing with you about opening moments in everyday life that open the lines of communication with God. I'm going to suggest that we find God and hear from Him not so much from our personal quest for Him or our questioning or even arguing with Him or about Him, but in serving Him where He's needed. Would you follow me into a story that shows how this works? The first Christians had a lot to learn. They struggled with how to respond to people who weren't traditionally religious. Many people in the society of the first Christians pieced together their approach to God, or usually the gods, with a little of this and a little of that. Plato was deeply influential, as were the Stoics, but also the presence of an expanding pantheon of gods and all the mystery cults who claimed to be immersed in the divine life. Some were drawn to the Jewish God of the covenants and the promises regarding His Messiah, and they would gather with admiration around the Jewish temple and the synagogues. One of these is named in the New Testament book of Acts as Cornelius. He was a military man for Rome, a centurion, described as an upright and God-fearing man. The devout admirers of Judaism were called God-fearers. It was said of him that he gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. Acts 10. So before he had completely defined his religious beliefs in his pluralistic environment, God spoke to him one afternoon in a vision of an angel who said to him, "Your prayers and your generous gifts to the poor have come up as a sacrifice to God and have been remembered by Him." Again, Acts 10. That is, Cornelius's willingness to give and serve and sacrifice himself opened a distinct line of communication with God. Soon, Peter was drawn into the conversation, and then the Holy Spirit of God spoke loudest of all, to the surprise of everyone. For Cornelius, serving God in tender concern for others before even fully knowing God, opened up contact with God, and he became part of the loving family of God. And so it seems it is for all of us. When my life is oriented toward loving service toward others before myself, so that I really see others and their needs, my heart will often be broken for their sake. To be sure, if I can observe the suffering and need in my world and can maintain a cool and detached heart, I'm most certainly moving away from the heart of Jesus. And as I spoke of last week, it is my broken heart into which the Word and the Spirit of God enters. And it's out of my broken heart that His love pours out in the Spirit of Jesus. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give His life a ransom for many. Matthew 20 and Mark 10. When my heart is close to His heart in giving and serving, I'm never alone. I can be sure that I'm never without Him. So, let me make this up close and personal. As I write these words, I've just returned from the San Bernardino County Jail, where I did an evaluation this morning regarding mental health issues for one of the inmates. This is based on California law, the law in Penal Code 1001.36. It was enacted about 2 years ago, which provides for some criminal defendants who clearly have mental health concerns to obtain treatment rather than incarceration, and then have the charges dropped later if they meet the conditions of their diversion. While I must be an objective evaluator and make sure a dangerous criminal is not let loose in the community, my heart does go out to these defendants. For some whose lives have had large amounts of pain and tragedy, my heart breaks. They need help, not punishment. And I feel blessed to be part of a justice system that will allow for help and healing to occur where it's indicated. I've got to remember this when a trip to the jail is unpleasant and time-consuming. Today's visit had jail staff waste about 2 hours of my time, largely through indifference and lack of efficiency. Several staff members just didn't appear to care that much. And I have to admit that there rose up in me an indignant feeling, and I spoke the words to myself, I don't need this. Why don't I just quit doing these evaluations? But then I remind myself that I do the evaluations not for myself or for the jail staff, but for the man with delusions on the other side of the glass. That man who may need to be lifted up by proper treatment, not locked up. I return to my heart, captured by him, the Son of Man, and broken by the needs of others, not to my own convenience and pride and ego. And again, I seek his wisdom and his generosity and, yes, his love to flow from it. What do you have for me, God? What do you have to say to me in the middle of all this? You know, he may, after all, be less mysterious in his communication than I think. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. That's his heart. That's his life. And when I seek to be close to his heart and actually live out his heart, I show that I've heard from him and I've said yes. And I can take as fact that he really does hear me.